NBA, as we do since the football season has ended. Going to talk about the trade deadline, which passed yesterday. No real big moves were made. I would probably say the biggest move had to be Channing Frye going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, Markieff Morris going to the Washington Wizards was also a big trade. But you look at where the Wizards are, they're currently out of the playoffs, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are the top team in the Eastern Conference and certainly have title aspirations. Um, We'll start with that trade first. Channing Frye is a guy I like. He can stretch the floor. They did have to give up Anderson Varejao to get him. Anderson Varejao went to Portland, I believe, because it was part of a three-team trade. Varejao is a guy with limited offensive game, does a lot of the dirty work. He's a hustle player, gets offensive rebounds, things like that. But Cleveland already has one of the best offensive rebounders in the league on their team in Tristan Thompson. And he's a younger guy and a bit more polished offensively, though they're both not the best offensive players. So you're not really losing much in that regard. Channing Frye is a guy, like we say, can stretch the floor, is a big who can pull out other bigs and shoot the three. You do already have that with Kevin Love. We know Tyronn Lue, since he's become the coach, has wanted to go small. He wants this team running a bit more. So I'd expect a lot more small lineups, possibly with Kevin Love and Channing Frye both running the 4 and 5 positions, whichever. I mean, you would probably just look at it as 2 4s in that situation. Would certainly make them deadly from behind the three-point line with a guy like LeBron James who can penetrate and dish out. And we know that the three-point shot is a very important part of the game in today's NBA. So that's going to be interesting to see how well he can integrate in. You look at some of the other trades, as we discussed, Markieff Morris going to Washington. There was also the Jeff Green, Lance Stevenson by mistake, but we'll stick with Markieff Morris going to Washington. The Wizards have been a disappointment thus far this season. I think they can still get to the playoffs, especially with the injuries the Bulls are facing and where they've been going of late. Chicago will need Jimmy Butler back. I don't know how soon it's going to be. Nikola Mirotic, another guy who's had his problems because of an operation, then had his problems with the appendicitis afterwards. It's kept him out. So they're missing a lot of guys and key players, and they've been losing a lot of games of late. So if they can't get it together, Washington can certainly make a run. Washington, I believe, is 24 and 28 now, so they got a lot of work to do. They're off a win last night, which helps. Markieff Morris is a guy who's going to add some size, certainly, and a bit more athletic on the offensive end. You already have guys like Marcin Gortat and Nene Hilario, or just Nene now. He no longer goes by Hilario. But Morris is a guy who can also knock down some outside jumpers, which Gortat and Hilario, or Nene, excuse me again, they can do, just not on a consistent basis. I would have liked to seen or have seen a better move by the Washington Wizards, to be frank with you. Morris obviously has had his problems controlling his attitude. We saw him get in a fight earlier this year with one of his teammates, so we'll see how that works. Washington, I thought the talent was there. They had enough, certainly, to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, which I predicted them to do. They've made strides each of the last 2 seasons, so I don't know why they made the move, to be honest. I just felt it was a situation where the team needed to get focused coming out of the All-Star break. But they did, and we'll see what goes on from there. The Jeff Green for Lance Stevenson move, Jeff Green going out to L.A. for the Clippers, Stevenson coming back to Memphis. Jeff Green is a taller, more athletic guy, longer arms, probably a bit better of a defender. These guys are both inconsistent scorers, though. Usually they are more hot than cold, but it's really a wash in that regard. I just look at Jeff Green as a little bit better defender. Memphis, I'm surprised they didn't try to get a big, especially with Marc Gasol, who is going to be out the rest of the season. When we did the video, I didn't realize it was going to be as long as it is. I thought there was a possibility he would come back, but he is almost certainly done for the rest of the season. So I'm a little surprised Memphis didn't add some size to help their front line. It is what it is. They'll hope that Stevenson can provide a bit more consistency in the scoring department. They're going to need to be able to score in the playoffs. That's been their one bugaboo, especially with a guy like Tony Allen. So they just need to rely on a bit more consistency, as we said, from Stevenson, and they're going to lose a little bit of the defense that Jeff Green can provide. They're already a strong defensive team, though. You look at trades that weren't made. The Rockets, they of course traded Monte Eunice and Marcus Thornton. Thornton, a good offensive guy, but he's a dime a dozen in this league. They did not trade Dwight Howard. Reports are they were looking for obviously a first round pick and another player who could play and come in and start and contribute immediately. A lot of talk about the Boston Celtics. As a Celtics fan, it was getting to the point I wanted them to roll the dice and take a chance on Howard. I thought they had plenty of assets to give up to get him even as a rental. I think that Dwight Howard, he didn't have to do much offensively, and with the defense the Celtics play, a lot of ball pressing guards, it's nice to have that eraser on the back end. It wasn't made for the Celtics. They didn't make any moves. They have obviously all the draft picks and the Brooklyn picks, so I was kind of, 6-1, half dozen the other. Had they made a move, I would have been happy. I think that they have to be able to improve this team in the offseason, and I think they will, but that trade wasn't made. I was a little surprised Toronto, they were in talks to add Thaddeus Young, but they're right there. They're playing well. They had the talent. They just haven't moved past the first round of the playoffs, but certainly if this team is able to do that, I think they can be a serious contender. They just got to get that monkey off the bag. Obviously, teams like Golden State, San Antonio, they're going to stand pat. They're playing way too good to trade any of their players. Oklahoma City, the same thing. I'm looking to see what Houston can do now coming out of the All-Star break, not making any trades. You have the roster. There were some reports about James Harden and Dwight Howard when they lost. That was going on 2 years ago now to the Portland Trailblazers in the playoffs. They both wanted him traded. Dwight Howard's almost certainly going to be gone in the offseason. I don't think he's going to get a max deal from Houston. So, no one was traded. They have the team. They've been struggling, but they can still try to turn it around here, get up to maybe the fifth seed, especially with the injury to Marc Gasol, and you would avoid all three of Golden State, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City in the first round. So that should be their goal, and then gives themselves a chance the rest of the way.